Ich habe es einfach so stark, diese alte Apple-Realität immer in maximal.
So, jetzt super. So we decided to speak English. Although my English is not so good, but you have to speak more than me, so it would be perfect. So I start the first question. You are a psychiatrist at home in a lockdown. My question is, if it's hard for you, will you meet the therapy afterwards, or your family, or how do you experience this?
Yeah, I'm a psychiatrist, so that means I deal with people with the emotional impact of things, so my special interest is anxiety and how we deal with emotional impact of things that happen to us, and it's a difficult situation for all of us. So indeed, it feels like we're entering a zone where everybody needs a bit of therapy and a bit of psychological support. What I have noticed for myself is that it's an opportunity to engage with mindfulness. I'm also a mindfulness teacher and a mindfulness facilitator in my clinical work with patients. And this seems to be a unique opportunity where the whole world could be more mindful. We've got more time to be more mindful in a way that we could do more meditation practice while being at home. And B, the whole atmosphere the lockdown creates a certain quietness and a certain sort of absence of noise and action around us. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to become a bit more mindful.
But my personal question is, you said that you have more mindfulness. Try not to move too much the camera, if not. I'm all the time on stress. I'm not sure if this is, and the people I know, we are all stressed because all the normal work, it takes much longer. You go to the supermarket, it takes like 4 hours because you have to clean afterwards everything. So it's very difficult you're close with the family. It's very difficult to have mindfulness, no?
Well, mindfulness was not created for the good moments and the calm moments in life, because otherwise we'd never be mindful. Mindfulness is an opportunity to relate to difficulties that arise on a day-to-day basis in a slightly different way. But, and at the same time also notice how stressful it all is. It's a very unique situation for all of us. We're all under real threat. So this is a potentially dangerous condition. Our life has changed completely. Our jobs are insecure. The economic situation is insecure. We can't be with our friends and loved ones like they want to be. We worry about them. Of course, this is immensely stressful, and anything else than reacting with stress would be not human. So there's an opportunity to perhaps see our humanity in the whole thing, and basically not adding extra stress by basically criticizing ourselves for being stressed.
You're right.
It's so easy to say, oh my God, why am I so stressed? I shouldn't be like this. And I would like to say, no, we should be like this. It is stressful.
You're right. So how is the situation in UK? Because in the beginning we were like, oh, they told that, that everybody, all the British people should be infected. So afterwards it's much easier, or that the government missed some opportunities to reduce the impact. So how is now because Boris Johnson has it had as well. He had COVID, so he knew what it was. So how is now the situation?
Well, I think the British government started late to decide what they were going to do. I remember on the 15th of March, I went to a very meaningful event for myself, which was a Beethoven concert for his 250th birthday. It lasted 4 hours, and there were about 1,000 or 2,000 people in one room. And there was a feeling that this was the last time we're going to have this big crowd together. And on the 16th of March, a day later, actually less than 24 hours later, we went into lockdown. So what I was trying to say is that obviously it took a while for this country to really get into the lockdown, but when it happened quite quickly. And yes, indeed, we are now in lockdown, and the rates are not as dramatic as in Italy and in Spain, but they are quite dramatic. and they're still going up, and it's still uncertain when the big first wave is going to be over. So everybody's still very concerned, and there's no movement towards sort of easing the lockdown. Um, I think people were reminded how serious the condition is when Boris Johnson went into intensive care about 2 weeks ago. Suddenly, he was suffering from COVID and he was doing all right, staying at home, and then suddenly he got worse and went into intensive care. And I think everybody was really at that time noticing how serious the whole thing is. I think everybody knew, but this, I think, brought it home to us, again, how this can affect anybody. So I think people are accepting of the lockdown, but people are also, like probably in Spain as well, getting very tired of it as well, and wish for it to be relieved as soon as possible. So, it's going on and on and on, doesn't seem to be ending.
So now my question, there was a joke in Spain that they say, oh, we have Corona now, nobody's speaking about the independence, Catalonian problem. I suppose you have the same thing with Brexit?
Well, yeah, Brexit. The Brexit discussion ended very suddenly at the end, mid-December, when the election was. Everybody was completely exhausted. But probably a bit like Spain, people really exhaust themselves in these debates and get very irritable and very sort of frustrated with each other. And there was a huge amount of frustration. People were just almost needing a bit of, let's have Christmas, let's have New Year and forget about it for a moment. And by the time that was over, it's almost when the Corona crisis started. So there was really no time to get back to the battle that has been there about Brexit. So yeah, it's gone down a little bit. The discussion has gone down a little bit about Brexit, but I personally feel it's very sad, because obviously this is an opportunity for all European countries now to start working together and supporting each other. And Britain is not going to be part of that, so that's going to be very sad for me personally.
Yeah. The question is, what can you do just now? Because we are very restricted here in Spain. We can't even go make sports or something like this at the moment. It will change, but what can you do in England, and what can't you do?
Well, it's probably very similar to Spain, and we were allowed to go shopping, but as little as possible.
But not clothes shopping, no? You go to the supermarket.
So just to the supermarket, all other shops are closed. You're right. All other shops are closed. Schools are closed. So people are encouraged to stay at home. If you have to go out, keep your distance. And we can do exercise once a day, and we should do the exercise close to home. So you can go jogging or on your bike, or on a walk. But we're not supposed to be socializing, and just keep a distance really from each other. People, I don't know how it's in Spain, people are not very good at knowing what 2 meters actually are. That much is not 2 meters. But people just don't seem to be getting it sometimes. So yeah. So,
do you go out with mask, and do you see every person with mask and gloves and?
This is slowly changing. So far, you don't see a lot of people with masks, because the government recommendations have been clear. Only wear a mask if you're suffering from cough yourself. But I think the government guidance may change, and then you will see people more with masks. There are no masks around, so people need to make their own masks. Some people wear gloves in the shops, but in general, people just try to keep a distance from each other.
The question is about the lockdown here in Spain. You know that the kids, for example, they in the lockdown like some weeks ago, and there was a lot of criticism, like for example, my younger daughter, like 6 weeks or 5 weeks. I don't know. Do you think this will have an impact afterwards, or for the adults, but also for the kids, or not? Do you think they adapt quickly to the situation, and there will no impact afterwards?
It's a very difficult question. I mean, there's a constant debate about that, what the impact on the children is. I mean, what really has happened is that the A level, sort of the baccalaureate, I don't know how you call that in Spanish, but the final exam to go to university, they've just cancelled that. So the British are using sort of mock exams. So they're doing sort of pseudo exams in preparation for the final results. And then they basically have now said the preparation exams are now the final exams. So we don't have to do the real exams. So, and people, if they're not happy with that, they can redo the exams in the autumn. So they've tried to be flexible on that. So that's for the older children. For the younger children, I think, people are struggling because there's disadvantaged children that come from very sort of fragile and poor background, where not going to school is actually a real issue. School often provide a meal for them on a daily basis. School provide a certain structure for them on a daily basis. Without that meal and that structure, there are disadvantaged children that are undoubtedly suffering. I think the third aspect where people are really worried about the children is obviously the irritability that may arise in some families, and domestic sort of abuse may arise, and so one wonders about the impact on the vulnerable children when they witness sort of domestic situations. So there are a lot of concerns. The longer term impact is very difficult to say. It probably depends on the discipline, also on the parents and the children to really stay and do some teaching online and do some teaching, with online resources. Very difficult to say.
Yeah. And you as a psychiatrist, how do you do your therapy now at online? So what is the
Yeah.
difference? Do they lay on the bench in their home, or the thing is what's the difference? Are there positive things, or do you what you know?
I do therapy online. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, so I don't lie people on the bench, and online therapy is different than face-to-face therapy because the therapy I do is very interactive. So it's a quite dynamic therapy in a way that we use, let's say we use materials to exchange little leaflets with materials, or we do role plays. Sometimes we do chair work where people jump from one chair to another chair. So it's quite an interactive therapy I'm doing. So doing this online is possible, but it's a different experience. And my patients and I, we agree it's second best, but it's probably as best as we can do under the circumstances.
Do you have more? What are you experienced now? What are the things that people have to struggle? Do you have more patience at the moment, or do you? I'm not sure.
So the impact on my practice is very mixed, really. It's really interesting. Some people actually enjoy the lockdown, particularly when they've got interpersonal problems. So a lot of people that I see have got problems getting on with other people, or feeling very shy or anxious about other people, feeling very judged by other people, feeling very insecure about themselves, or having low self-esteem, feeling insecure about their bodies, and their body shape. So these people remarkably actually find the lockdown very beneficial because they don't have to interact so much with people. So a lot, you have to remember that a lot of psychological illness arises out of our difficulty with other human beings, and our interaction with other human beings. So in that sense, it gives people a bit of a break. So for some of my patients, it had been really good. For other of my patients who are perhaps higher functioning, they obviously worry much more because they might, like we all do, be struggling with their jobs. There might be financial issues arising on top of sort of emotional issues. And then they get more anxious, and the crisis becomes an extra anxiety in their lives. So it's very variable.
So one question, we started this project because we were a little bit tired of all the negative news. It's normal because it's a huge crisis. The thing is, what do you see positive of this complicated situation for you personally, and as a psychiatrist, for the people and in general?
As a psychiatrist, what I see positive is that this is a world crisis. So rather than having communists against capitalists, Italians against, I don't know, Germans, British against the EU, US against the rest of the world, against China. Um, we have got a unifying sort of enemy out there, which is a disease. And in a way, it reminds us that we're all sitting in one boat. It reminds us that the disease is indiscriminate. As long as we are humans, we will be attacked by it. If we're cats, we won't be attacked by it. So it makes us a unique species to be vulnerable to this. So common humanity, sort of common vulnerability, actually is a theme that hopefully we can keep sort of reminding ourselves of, that we're all in the same boat, and can we somehow see that in each other? Obviously, dictators and leaders are using the crisis to bring each other up against each other. We're doing better than the others. We're so much more organized than the other countries. We're so much more prepared for this. But this is sort of a misconstruing the reality behind this. This is a unifying crisis, and we as humanity can actually think, can we do something together? Can we step together and really thinking about ourselves as being vulnerable? And can we take action together rather than against each other?
You're right. The last thing is, because it's a surprising thing that happens in everywhere, that the people did not understand the crisis that was coming. And I'm not sure, because maybe it's China and you say all the Asian people look the same, or it's not, it's not us or whatever, but it happens because I started this and I spoke to people to South America and wherever, and they didn't expect it to be like this, like so fast, so quick, so disaster. Has this a psychological basis, or because it started in China and then afterwards you hear Italy, and everybody said, the health system is not so good as ours, it's
I think it is. I mean, we have to remember that there have been lots of epidemics over the last 2,500 years, and we've had a variety of crises over the last, let's say, 50 years that didn't affect everybody. So, for example, we had the SARS and the MERS crisis a few years ago, which was very contained. It was only happening in a certain area and then it went away again. We had the Ebola crisis that was in West Africa, and it was contained in the area and then it went away again. So we've been warned, but also we got the message, nothing happened. We had the HIV crisis where 30 million people died, and it was only affecting a certain group of people. So the rest of us felt sort of safe. And it's a very unique sort of event where everybody is sort of at risk. And so we weren't prepared for it because it hasn't happened before. I mean, like so many things in life, if it's never happened before, then we are probably mentally not prepared for it. So I don't blame people for being unprepared and for being obviously anxious about it, because it's a unique situation. On the other hand, there's so many things that hit us all and we can be affected by as individuals, where people just don't make such a global sort of news out of it, which go more under the radar. We've had epidemics of flu in the past, where sort of 20 or 30,000 elderly people died as part of that flu epidemic, sort of extra deaths on top of normal sort of deaths, and people didn't make such a huge issue out of it, but it probably was a smaller dimension.
Yeah, and really the last question is, what do you recommend the people now in the lockdown and with the situation, because it will last for months, so you can't embrace people. For example, in Spain, it's the tapas, you eat them together. Maybe normally you greet with 2 kisses. It's totally different when we come out of the lockdown, because now the people are thinking in the lockdown, but I think the problem starts when we come out. So the things, what do you recommend the people to to be healthy in this situation afterwards? Or during, I'm not sure,
yeah,
but to deal with the situation.
Well, I think the first thing I'd recommend that people um, sort of structure can be very healing. So if we've got a certain structure to our day, we get a certain time of the day, we do certain things in a structured and ritualized way that can give us a lot of predictability to our day. So as much as predictability as possible and as much routine as possible in our daily lives. So even if if the day seems to be merging into each other, really sort of keeping little breaks in the middle of it and keeping our structure. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is really knowing it's going to end. You know, it's definitely going to end this. You know, we'll get through this, and most of it will be okay. So reminding ourselves that this is just the way it is at the moment, but this is not life's not ending on Earth, and we will get through this. And sort of perhaps making a little bit of tentative plans. I sometimes like to say, book your holiday in the autumn, or at least dream about it. So we will be back to, at some stage, being able to hug each other and kiss each other and be close to each other again. So not keep losing the faith, if that makes sense. And the third thing is obviously to stay in touch with our friends and family, which most people probably do. You know, they have got their online contacts, and even though it's second best, perhaps just also reminding ourselves that just because we're separated from each other doesn't mean that the internal connection ends. We're all in a long distance relationship now. So reminding ourselves of that, quality, that our relationship doesn't change just because we're not long distance relationships.
Okay, Florian. So thank you very much. It was very nice to speak to you in English. Maybe we speak in German another time.
Spanish.
Or Spanish. So thank you very much, and good health, and resist, yeah?
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Venceremos.
Venceremos, resistiremos.